Welcome to John Carter Stories. I still remember the exact time. For 17 in the morning, the kitchen was dark except for the glow of my laptop screen, and the house was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming, and the old floorboards settling like they always do in the cold. My hands were steady, completely steady, and one by one, I clicked through every single retirement account I owned and removed my daughter's name from every beneficiary form. She had no idea. She thought she was already set to inherit everything. She thought I was too old, too lonely, too grateful to notice what was really happening right under my roof. Please subscribe and like this video, and listen to my story till the end. And let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. Because what happened to me, I don't think I'm the only one. My name is Edward Sullivan. I'm 64 years old. And until about 8 months ago, I believed with everything in me that I had a devoted daughter. Not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But devoted. Someone I could count on no matter what. Sarah was my youngest, the baby of the family. Her older brother, Daniel, died in a car accident when he was just 28 years old. 15 years ago now. Losing him nearly broke me and my wife Margaret completely in half. We would sit at the dinner table some evenings and just not be able to speak. The grief was that heavy, but we had Sarah, and somehow the three of us held each other together through it. Then Margaret was diagnosed, ovarian cancer, stage 4 by the time they found it. She lasted 6 months from that first appointment to the last breath she took with her hand in mine. 6 months. That's all we got. Sarah was there through every single day of it. She flew in from Charlotte every other weekend. She sat with her mother through chemotherapy, held her hand when the pain got so bad that words weren't enough anymore. At the funeral, Sarah stood up at that podium and delivered a eulogy that had the entire church weeping. She talked about how her mother had taught her to be strong, to be independent, to always protect the people you love. I was so proud of her that day. So proud. After Margaret died, I was alone in our house. The 3-bedroom home we bought back in 1989 for $135,000. Now we're somewhere around $650,000 in this mountain real estate market that's gone absolutely wild. And beyond the house, Margaret and I had spent 35 years building something real. I was an electrical engineer at a manufacturing plant. She was a school teacher. We never lived lavishly. We clipped coupons, drove cars until they fell apart, skipped vacations sometimes, put money away every single month without fail. Between my pension, my 401k, and my IRA, I was sitting on close to $900,000. For the first year after Margaret died, I managed. I really did. I had my routines, and routines are what keep a man sane when grief is chewing on him from the inside. Every morning I'd take my coffee out the back deck and watch the mist rise off those mountains. Margaret loved those mountains so much. Every Monday and Thursday, I volunteered at the Veterans Center downtown. I did a tour in Vietnam in '71, and spending time with other vets felt like the only place I didn't have to explain myself. Twice a week, I'd have lunch with my best friend George, and every Sunday evening at 6 o'clock sharp, Sarah would video call me from Charlotte. Those Sunday calls were something I looked forward to all week. She'd tell me about her work as a pharmaceutical sales rep, about her husband Derek's construction business, about my grandson Eli, who was 12 and obsessed with soccer and making me laugh every time I saw him on that screen. Everything seemed fine. Good, even. Then last February, Sarah called on a Wednesday, not a Sunday, and the moment I heard her voice, I knew. "Dad," she said, "I need to talk to you about something serious." My heart dropped straight into my stomach. My first thought was cancer. It's always cancer after you've watched someone you love die from it. But no, she told me Derek's construction business had collapsed. The contractor, he'd been working under declared bankruptcy. Derek was owed $240,000 and would never see a single dollar of it. They had refinanced their house the year before to grow the business. The mortgage was $4,200 a month. Eli's private school was $18,000 a year. They had been burning through their savings for 6 months trying to stay above water, and they were drowning. "Dad, we're in real trouble," she said. And her voice cracked just enough. And oh, I felt it. Every parent knows that feeling. When your child is hurting and every cell in your body fires at once telling you to fix it, to solve it, to make it stop. It doesn't matter how old they are. How much do you need? I asked. There was a long pause. And then she said it wasn't that simple. Stay with me, because what comes next changes everything. She started talking about moving to Asheville. Cost of living was lower than Charlotte. Derek could find construction work here. Eli could go to public school. And I wouldn't be alone anymore. She said, Dad, what if something happened to you? What if you fell and nobody found you for days? And then she said it. The words that unlocked every door I had closed. Mom would have wanted us to stick together. She used Margaret's name like a key. And just like that, she was in. If you're still with me, drop a comment right now and tell me where you're listening from. I want to know how far this story travels. And trust me, you need to hear what happens next. They moved to Asheville in March. Found a rental 10 minutes from my house. Sarah said they were looking to buy, but the market was tough. Derek said he was networking, building things back up. Meanwhile, Sarah started coming over. 3 for times a week. At first, it felt wonderful. She'd bring groceries, cook dinner, help me finally sort through Margaret's clothes that I still couldn't bring myself to touch. Eli would come over after school sometimes, and I'd help him with his math homework. The house felt like a home again. I felt less like a man just waiting out the rest of his days. But then, the little things started. Sarah began asking detailed questions about my finances. How much was my pension? What were my monthly expenses? What exactly did I have saved, and where was it kept? She framed it as concern. Always. Dad, I just want to make sure you're managing everything okay. I know Mom used to handle a lot of the bills. That was true. Margaret had been better with paperwork. But I've been handling everything fine for 2 years on my own, and I told Sarah that. Oh, I know, she said, smiling that warm smile. I just worry about you. That's all. And I let it go, because she was my daughter, and I loved her. Don't go anywhere. Part 2 is where I find out just how wrong I was. We left off with me letting things go, telling myself it was just worry, just love. Oh, how I wish I had trusted my gut sooner. It was a Saturday in April. Sarah had brought lunch from that deli downtown I always loved. We were sitting out on the back deck, the mountains in the distance just starting to go green with spring. She had a folder with her. Dad, she said, I've been reading about estate planning. I asked her what she meant. She talked about power of attorney, about how if something ever happened to me, if I were in a hospital, if I couldn't make my own decisions, someone needed to be legally authorized to handle my affairs, pay my bills, make medical choices. Without it, she said, everything goes to court and it becomes a nightmare. She opened the folder. There were forms inside, official looking, already partially filled out. I had these drawn up, she said softly, just standard forms. It only matters if you're ever unable to manage things. You keep complete control. Otherwise, Dad, this is just in case. And I felt it right there in my chest. That twist in the gut that you can't explain, but you can't ignore either. Margaret always said I had good instincts. Said the same thing had kept me alive in Vietnam. I told Sarah I needed to think about it, and her face did something. Just for half a second. A flicker behind the eyes. Annoyance. Frustration. And then it vanished, replaced by the gentle, patient, concerned daughter expression. Of course, Dad. Take all the time you need. The very next morning, I called my attorney. Benjamin, I'll call him Ben in this story, had been my lawyer for 20 years. Handled our wills, our property, a contractor dispute years back. I described everything that had happened. Tom, he said, that's what he calls me. Don't you sign a single thing without bringing it to me first. Power of attorney documents in the wrong hands are dangerous. You hear me? I made an appointment. I didn't tell Sarah. And then I started really paying attention. I noticed Sarah had been going through my mail before I saw it. I'd come home and find it already opened, sorted into neat piles on the kitchen counter. Just helping out, she'd say, you had some bills that needed attention. I noticed Derek asking questions about the house. How much had I paid for it? When had it last been appraised? Was the mortgage paid off? He'd laugh and say he was just curious. Real estate's crazy right now. Edward, you could probably get a fortune for this place. I noticed Sarah walking through my rooms with her phone out, taking photographs. My home office, the master bedroom, the garage where Margaret's old Honda still sat, because I couldn't bring myself to sell it. I asked her about the photos. I want Eli, to remember his grandmother's house. She said, that's all. And then one evening she brought over some insurance forms. Dad, you still have that life insurance policy, right? The whole life one you and Mom bought years ago? Yes, I said. Paid up completely. Who's the beneficiary? It was still listed as Margaret. She nodded. You need to update that. And Dad, your retirement accounts, your 401k, your IRA. Do you know who's listed on those? I said, I thought it was still Margaret. When someone dies, you have to update the beneficiaries, she said. Otherwise, the money goes to your estate, gets tied up in probate, legal fees, taxes. It's a total mess. Here, I printed the forms. You just need to sign them, and I'll submit everything to the financial companies for you. She placed a stack of papers on the table. Beneficiary designation forms for every account I had. Vanguard, Fidelity, my pension administrator. Every single one had her name filled in as the primary beneficiary. Already filled in, waiting for my signature. I asked her, what about Daniel's girls? His 2 daughters were adults now. Shouldn't they receive something? She waved her hand gently. They have their own lives, Dad. They're doing fine. And I'm the one who's here. I'm the one taking care of you. That's what Mom would have wanted. I didn't sign. I told her I needed to review things with my accountant first. That same flicker of annoyance crossed her face again. There and gone like a light blinking off. I need you to stay with me right here, because what my attorney found in those forms is something I think everyone needs to hear. Comment below and tell me, did you feel something was off before this point in the story? Because I did, and I ignored it. The following week, I sat down with Ben and laid everything out in front of him. The power of attorney forms, the beneficiary designation papers. He read through everything slowly, deliberately. He had the look of a doctor who's just found something terribly wrong on an x-ray. Tom, he said, if you had signed this power of attorney, Sarah could have accessed every bank account you own. She could have sold your house. She could have moved your investments. And here's the part that stopped my heart. Look at this clause. He pointed to a line in the document. This power of attorney shall be effective immediately upon signing. Immediately, not if I became sick, not if I was incapacitated. The moment my pen left that paper, Sarah could have walked into any bank, shown them that document, and done whatever she pleased with my money. That day, that hour, I felt cold in a way that had nothing to do with the weather. Then Ben asked me something that I wasn't expecting. Tom, do you feel safe? Do you genuinely believe Sarah has your best interests at heart? I thought about the photos, the questions about the house, the way she had slowly made herself a fixture in every corner of my life, the way Derek had started talking about how I was sitting on a gold mine. I don't know, I said, and I could barely get the words out. Ben leaned forward. Well, you described me. He said quietly, fits a pattern I've seen in this office more times than I wish I had. It's called financial elder abuse. It starts with moving close, offering help, making you feel dependent. Then it moves to controlling your finances, getting power of attorney, changing beneficiaries. The end game is either having you declared legally incompetent or simply waiting for you to pass and taking everything. Sarah wouldn't. She's my daughter, I said. Tom, I've been a lawyer for 32 years. I've watched children do things to their parents that would make your stomach turn. I'm not telling you this is definitely what's happening, but I am telling you to take it seriously before it's too late. He gave me a name, a private investigator. Patricia, I'll call her that. Former FBI, white-collar crime division. Just talk to her, Ben said. If I'm wrong, great, but if I'm right, you need to know. I met her 3 days later at a coffee shop in West Asheville. She ordered a black coffee, set a notepad on the table, and looked at me with calm, steady eyes. How long have they been in town? She asked. 3 months, I said, and the financial questions started almost immediately, within the first couple of weeks. She nodded. Has Sarah tried to limit your contact with friends? Made it harder for you to spend time with people outside the family? And I thought about George. Sarah had made comments about him more than once. Said he was a bad influence. That he lived too much in the past. That spending time with him seemed to make my mood worse. Actually, I said, yes, she doesn't like my friend George. Patricia wrote something down. Classic isolation tactic. She set down her pen and looked at me directly. By the time I walked out of that coffee shop, I had made my decision. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to confront Sarah and give her the chance to cover her tracks. I was going to watch. Listen. Collect the truth, whatever it was. Patricia was thorough. She installed 4 small recording devices in my home. 1 in the kitchen, 1 in the living room, 1 in my home office, 1 in the hallway. She also handed me a pen that was actually a digital recorder. Keep this in your shirt pocket, she said. Every conversation with Sarah or Derek, you record it. North Carolina is a one-party consent state. As long as I agreed to the recording, it was completely legal in my own home. For 3 weeks, I watched and listened. And what I found, I watched Sarah on the living room camera while I was at the Veterans Center one Monday. I watched my own daughter walk to my filing cabinet, open the drawer, and photograph document after document. My will, my account statements, my property deed. She found the password notebook Margaret had made me keep years ago because I could never remember my login information. Sarah stood there in my living room and photographed every single page. Every single page. And then there was the kitchen recording. I was out one afternoon, and I came home to find the playback running. Sarah was on the phone with Derek. Speaker on, voice as clear as anything. He's being stubborn about the power of attorney, she said. He wants to involve his lawyer. Derek's voice came back tight and sharp. Can we go around that? I'm working on it. I'm going to try a different approach. Make him think it was his own idea. How much time do we have? Not much. We are bleeding money, Derek. The mortgage is 3 months behind. They're threatening foreclosure. We need at least $50,000 just to stop the bleeding. What about his retirement accounts? Can you access those? Not without him signing the beneficiary forms, or the power of attorney, or if he dies. There was a long pause on the recording. We're not talking about that, Sarah said. Her voice changed when she said it. I'm not saying we do anything, Derek said. I'm just saying he's 64. He's a veteran. He's got health issues. Statistically, how long is he really going to live? Derek, stop. I'm just saying we need a plan for all possible scenarios. I sat alone in my kitchen at midnight listening to that recording, and something inside me that I don't have words for just broke. But the worst came 1 week later. I had gone to bed early that night, around 9, but I couldn't sleep. Around 10:30, I heard voices downstairs. I crept to the top of the staircase in the dark and listened. They were in my living room. They thought I was asleep. We can't wait any longer, Derek was saying. The bank is going to take our house. We'll be out on the street. I know. I'm trying. He won't sign anything. Then we need to do this differently. My cousin Stephanie, her dad had dementia. She got him evaluated, declared incompetent, took over his finances, put him in a care facility, sold his condo, cleared $400,000. Dad doesn't have dementia. Who knows that? He's old. He's alone. I've seen him forget where he put his keys. Forget what day it is. That's enough. We just need a doctor to evaluate him. I know a doctor, Derek said. Dr. Reynolds. He's done evaluations for disability cases. He's flexible. Flexible? He writes what needs to be written. For a fee. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. How much would it cost? $5,000 for the evaluation. But Sarah, we're talking about access to $900,000 in retirement accounts. Plus the house. That's another $650,000. We're looking at $1.5 million. Even after paying off everything we owe, we'd clear $1 million. Easy. We could move somewhere cheaper. Buy a house outright. Never worry again. What about Dad? Where would he go? There are state facilities. They're not luxury, but they're affordable. Or there's a private place, Valley View, about $3,000 a month. He'd hate that. He'd fight us. Rachel, Sarah, once a guardianship is in place, it doesn't matter what he wants. You'd be his legal guardian. Complete control. He'd have no say. Another long pause. When could we set up the evaluation? Next week, if you want. I'll arrange it. I went back upstairs. I lay down on the bed in the dark. I didn't sleep. I lay there and thought about Sarah as a little girl learned to ride her bike, while I ran behind her, holding the seat and then slowly letting go. I thought about the day she graduated from college. Margaret gripping my arm with both hands, she was so proud. I thought about Sarah at her mother's bedside, holding Margaret's hand while she died. And I thought, who are you now? If this story is hitting you somewhere deep, please drop a like right now and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because what I did next, I want you to see that it's possible to fight back, even when it's your own family, even when your heart is completely shattered. The next morning I called Patricia. I have everything, I said. Hours of recordings. We met with her and Ben together. They listened to all of it. Patricia set the recorder down when it finished and looked at Ben. This is more than enough to go to the police right now, she said. I asked what would happen. They'd open a formal investigation. With this evidence, Sarah and Derek would likely face charges of attempted financial exploitation, conspiracy to commit fraud, and elder abuse. Serious felonies in this state. Ben had a different idea. Or, he said, we give them one more chance to incriminate themselves completely. We set up a scenario where they believe they've won. We let them make their final move. And we catch it all on record. Make the case absolutely airtight. I want that, I said. I want them to have no way out. Here's what we did. I invited Sarah and Derek to Sunday dinner. I made a pot roast using Margaret's recipe, the one she'd been making for 30 years with those little potatoes and the fresh rosemary. Over dinner, I played the part. I forgot what day it was. I called Eli by Daniel's name. I seemed tired and confused and lost. Sarah and Derek exchanged a look across the table, a look that said everything. After dinner, I told Sarah I'd been thinking about what she'd said regarding power of attorney. I spoke slowly, like a man who was losing his grip on things. I think you might be right, I said. I have been forgetting things lately, getting confused. Maybe I do need help managing everything. I trust you, honey. You've been so good to me since your mother died. And Sarah's eyes lit up, not with relief, not with love, with something else entirely. Oh, Dad, she said, reaching over and taking both my hands. I'm so glad. We just want to take care of you. That's all we've ever wanted. I know, I said. I know you do. We scheduled the signing for the following Friday. She said she'd bring the papers and have them notarized on the spot. That Thursday night, I lay in bed and listened to them downstairs thinking I was asleep. It's done, Sarah was saying. He's signing everything tomorrow. The power of attorney. The beneficiary forms. All of it. Thank God, Derek said. I talked to Dr. Reynolds. He can do the evaluation next Wednesday. He'll write it up as moderate dementia, unable to manage financial affairs. We file for guardianship immediately after. And the accounts. Can we move money right away? The power of attorney gives access immediately. The beneficiary forms handle everything when he passes. But with the POA, we don't have to wait. We can start moving money next week. How much? I'm thinking $200,000 start. Pay off our debts. Buy a house. We move the rest slowly so it doesn't trigger any alerts. What about Dad's expenses while he's still here? We'll keep the minimum running. Utilities. Food. But Rachel, Sarah, he's going into a facility anyway. Valley View is $2,800 a month. We can cover that easily. The rest is ours. He's going to be so angry. He won't be able to do anything about it. Once the guardianship is in place, we have complete control. He'll adjust. Old people adjust. I stood in that hallway with tears running down my face. Not tears of sadness. Tears of pure rage. Friday morning, I woke at 4 a.m. I made coffee, and I sat down at my kitchen table with my laptop, and I spent the next hour changing every single beneficiary on every account I owned. My 401k, my IRA, my pension, my life insurance. I removed Sarah's name from everything. I named Daniel's 2 daughters as primary beneficiaries, a 50-50 split. I named George as the backup. At 4:17 a.m., I click submit on the final form. Then I close the laptop, finish my coffee, and watch the mountains go from black to blue to gold. And in part 4, they arrive at my door. They have no idea what's waiting for them. Friday morning came bright and clear. The kind of mountain morning that Margaret would have called a gift. Crisp air, long shadows, the smell of wood smoke from somewhere down the road. Sarah and Derek arrived at 10 o'clock sharp. Sarah had a smile on her face and a folder under her arm. Inside that folder were the power of attorney documents, the beneficiary forms, everything they needed to begin taking my life from me. What she didn't know was that other people were coming too. Up the front walkway came Benjamin, my attorney. Behind him, Patricia, the investigator. Then Detective James Warren from the Asheville Police Department. Then Sarah Chun from Adult Protective Services. And finally, last to arrive, moving slowly because his knees have been bad for years, my best friend George, retired federal judge, 32 years on the bench. When Sarah saw them walking up toward the house, her face went white. "Dad," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. What's going on?" "Sit down, Sarah," I said. My voice didn't shake. I had practiced this moment with Ben, and I wasn't going to deviate from it. Over the past several weeks, I told her, I have been investigating suspicious activity regarding my finances and my personal safety. I have collected extensive recorded evidence of attempted financial exploitation, conspiracy to commit fraud, and elder abuse. Derek stood up from his chair. "This is ridiculous. We've been helping you. We gave up everything to come here and be with you." "Sit down, Mr. Fletcher," Detective Warren said. "It wasn't a request. We played the recordings, every single one of them. The conversation about bypassing the attorney, the planning to have me declared incompetent, the discussion of Dr. Reynolds and his flexible evaluations, the night they sat in my living room calculating how much I was worth to them and where they'd put me once they had control. $1,500,000. That was the number they'd landed on. That's what they believed my life amounted to." Sarah's face went through colors I had never seen on a human being before. White, then red, then a grayish pallor that frightened me even then, even in my anger. Derek looked like he was going to be sick right there on my kitchen floor. "Under North Carolina law," Detective Warren said steadily, "financial exploitation of an elderly or disabled person is a Class H felony. Attempted fraud is also prosecutable. Mr. Sullivan has provided us with substantial evidence to move forward with charges." "Dad," Sarah's voice cracked completely open. "Dad, please. We weren't actually going to do it. We were just talking. We're desperate. The house, the debt, we didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to ask for help. Please, you were going to take everything," I said, and my voice was quiet, quieter than I expected. "Everything your mother and I spent our entire lives building. You were going to put me in a facility, a cheap one, and take it all. Not because you needed a little help, because you wanted $1 million. Sarah started crying, real tears running down her face. Maybe they were real. I don't know anymore what's real from her. "You manipulative old man," she said through the tears, and the words hit like a slap. "You played us. You set us up. I protected myself," I said, "from my own daughter. Do you understand what you've done? Not just legally. Do you understand that you destroyed our family for money? That's all this was to you. Money." She said she was sorry, over and over. I was desperate. I wasn't thinking clearly. The pressure was so much. "Please. You thought clearly enough to find a corrupt doctor," I said. "You thought clearly enough to research how to have me declared incompetent. You thought clearly enough to calculate exactly how much you'd clear after paying your debts. That's not desperation, Sarah. That's a plan." Ben stepped forward and formally served them with a cease and desist order. They were prohibited from contacting me, enter my property, or attempting to access any of my financial accounts. All documents Sarah had removed from my home were to be returned within 24 hours. Sarah Chun from Adult Protective Services announced that a full audit of my finances would be conducted to determine if any funds had already been misappropriated. My grandson Eli was waiting in the car outside. He didn't see any of this. I am grateful for that every single day. The police didn't arrest them that morning. Financial crime cases move slowly. But Detective Warren was very clear. Charges were coming. They left, Sarah still crying, Derek silent and jaw tight with a fury that told me he was mostly angry about being caught. I stood in my doorway and watched them go. Engagement break. I need to ask you something right now. If you were in my position, would you have done the same thing? Would you have been able to? Tell me in the comments. And while you're there, please subscribe, because part 5 is the part where I tell you what life looks like now. And it's not what you might expect. The legal process took 6 months. Sarah and Derek were formally charged with attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted identity theft. Their attorney negotiated a plea agreement, 3 years probation, full restitution of my legal costs, which came to $28,000, mandatory financial counseling, a permanent restraining order, no jail time. Ben explained that was typical for first-time offenders in cases where no money was actually taken. The law is imperfect. I made my peace with that. Mostly, I also pursued them in civil court. Emotional distress, attempted fraud, won a judgment for $125,000. They'll be paying that off for the rest of their lives. But I want to be honest with you. The money means nothing. It doesn't fill the house. It doesn't bring back Sunday evening calls at 6 o'clock. It doesn't give me back the feeling of helping my grandson with his math homework at the kitchen table. It doesn't give me back my daughter. Stay with me for one more part, because the last part is the one that matters most. I sit on my back deck most mornings now, same as I always have. The coffee is hot. The mountains are there, the same as they've always been, the mist rising off them slow and quiet in the early light. Margaret loved this view so much. Some mornings I talk to her out there. I don't know if she can hear me, but I talk to her anyway. George still comes by twice a week. He brings bad jokes and terrible coffee from that gas station he insists has the best brew in Asheville. He is wrong about the coffee. He is right about everything else. Ben calls to check in. Patricia sent a card at Christmas. I have my routines. Veteran Center on Mondays and Thursdays. Coffee on the deck. Lunch with George. I am not a man without a life. But Sunday evenings at 6 o'clock, I don't pick up the phone anymore. There's no one calling. There's no little boy coming over after school to work through algebra problems at my table. There's no daughter. 2 months ago, a letter arrived. Sarah's handwriting on the envelope. I recognized it before I even opened it. She's in therapy now, working through things. She wrote. She said she understands what she did. She said she knows she has no right to ask, but she hopes that someday, when I'm ready, if I'm ever ready, there might be a possibility of forgiveness. I haven't responded. I don't know if I ever will. Daniel's daughters came to visit last month. They're wonderful women. They came in and hugged me and sat at my kitchen table and drank coffee, and they cried a little when I told them the whole story. They said they had no idea what Sarah had been planning. They said they were sorry. They said they loved me. I believe them. Here is what I have learned. Greed is not loud. It doesn't announce itself with a confession or a warning. It moves quietly. It wears the face of worry. It speaks in the language of love. It tells itself it's doing the right thing, that the person's hurting will understand eventually, that necessity changes the rules. It might even believe that. The warning signs were there. I saw them. I felt them in my gut. That old instinct, the same one that kept me low in the jungle in 1971, when everything in the world was trying to kill me. I pushed it away because I wanted to believe in my daughter. I wanted to believe the little girl who used to fall asleep on my chest while I read to her was still in there. Still the same person. Still mine. Maybe she was once. Maybe debt and desperation hollowed something out of her that I'll never get back. I don't know. I'll probably never know. What I know is this. I protected myself. I did what had to be done. And if I had to live that whole terrible 8 months again, I would do it the same way. Every recording, every sleepless night, every moment sitting across from my own child and watching her face for signs of the person she used to be. I would do it again. Tell me in the comments, Have you been in a situation where you had to protect yourself from someone you loved? Have you had to choose between your safety and your loyalty to family? Tell me. And if you've dealt with something similar, share your story. You are not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. Because here is what I want to leave you with. You only get one life, one home, one sense of who you are and what you've built and what you deserve. Nobody, not a stranger, not an acquaintance, not a friend, and not even your own child, has the right to take that from you for money. Trust your instincts. Document everything. Ask for help. Don't wait. Don't make excuses for behavior that frightens you. Don't let grief or guilt or love blind you to what's right in front of your eyes. Protect yourself, even if it costs you something precious. Especially then. I'm 64 years old. I changed every beneficiary on every account I owned at 4:17 in the morning. Sitting alone in my kitchen with nothing but the glow of a laptop screen and the absolute certainty that I was doing the right thing. Sarah thought she was going to inherit everything. She was wrong. And every morning when I sit on this deck with my coffee, watching the mist lift off those mountains that Margaret loved so much, I am glad. I am sad. I am lonely sometimes. But I am whole. I am free. And I am still here. Some battles are worth fighting, even when you lose something precious in the process. Even when what you lose is someone you once loved more than you can say.